Good morning and welcome. It's SkeetNet on Friday the 26th of February. Hello, Michael in Douglas.
Good morning, Jed.
And hello from deepest Lancashire, it's Derek.
Hello, thank you. And I apologise for my dishevelled appearance this morning. I'm up to my backside in alligators, as they say, so I'm busy outside. So good to be here, though. Good to take
That is perfect, Derek, because today is the Isle of Man's National Dress Like an Animal Day for the fundraising for the MSPCA. And so perhaps being up to your neck in alligators would be good.
Well, there you go, you see. If I'd have known, I'd have put my my dinosaur suit on or something like that. But hey, never mind. Here we are.
Well, it's dressed like an animal day, is it today, Michael? What have you got? An alpaca outfit in the background?
Sadly, I do not have an alpaca outfit, and if I'd had the foresight, I would have totally got my big bird hat and put it back on. But instead, I'll be chipping in at MSPCA. Just go onto their website or their Facebook page. You can contribute a couple of dollars. It's a great excuse to wear a onesie around the house if you're working from home, or it's also a great excuse to wear an animal onesie if you go to work today in an office or some other place of employment.
Right, well, I'll dig my gorilla outfit out at some point today. So, anyway, we're going to be catching up with things that have happened in the media and around the Isle of Man and beyond. Should we start with the vaccination figures, Michael? I'll pull them up onto the screen. The Vax chart.
Excellent. So had a good week the previous week. So that is the week ending the 21st of February. But these are now updated to the 25th of February generally. And so we can see there that the Isle of Man has deployed about 23 doses per 100 people, which is a long way behind the 27 of Jersey, which is now a week old, the 29 and the 30s of England and Wales, and so heading in the right direction, but it is an awfully slow thing. And one of the things that we're beginning to see now is the difference between the first and the second doses of the different jurisdictions. And the simple way of thinking about this is that the first dose protects you from dying, and the second dose protects you from coughing or other symptoms. And so that's why it's really important to really get the vaccine, that first vaccine dose, into as many people as possible, because it really reduces the risk of dying. It's worth also keeping in mind that we have deployed to the Isle of Man. It appears that we've received about 32 doses per 100 people. So if you think of 16 have been used, 16 per 100 people have been put into people. About 7.5 have been put into people as a second dose. And then there's a further 10 doses per 100 people, which are currently sitting in storage.
Okay, well, there you have it from our data expert, Michael. So we had...
It continues to make me laugh every time you talk about a data expert, because, of course, this is what literally grade 9, 13, 14-year-old children learn at high school. So this is not the least bit complicated. It is all of these sources are publicly available. It is simply number of doses administered divided by the population.
And we're going through a bit of a U-turn on that policy, aren't we, at the moment with the second vaxes? Is that right?
So the government did announce that earlier this week, and what they managed to announce is the worst of both worlds. In that, and this when I heard this, it literally just made me incredibly angry, because the government seems to now admit that, and as the rest of the world recognised a month and a half ago, they now admit that it is the first dose which saves people's lives, which is good and it's important, and it is wonderful that the Isle of Man government has belatedly listened to the science here. Converts are always welcome, as I like to say. But then what they
you guys are just now, completely frozen on me.
What they have now also decided to do is they're not going to actually reschedule people's second appointments. So if you're already booked in to get your second dose next week, the Isle of Man government is going to continue to give it to you, which makes no sense, because if you recognise, as the Isle of Man now does, that it's the first dose that saves people's lives, then why would you continue giving people a second dose? That makes no sense whatsoever, because the important thing here is to save people's lives, rather than the administrative hurdle of rescheduling appointments. And I accept that some people might be disappointed to have their second vaccine dose appointment rescheduled. And I am sorry to hear that they might have been inconvenienced. But let me give you the hot tip that inconvenience of rescheduling that appointment is a lot less important than the importance of saving people's lives. And that's what this first vaccine dose does. It saves people's lives by reducing the risk of them dying from coronavirus. And these two things, saving people's lives and administrative hassle of rescheduling appointments, are not the same thing. And so what we need is a little bit of common sense, because currently we've improved the policy by making it worse.
So basically, it's a case of sending the invites out for another date. Simple as that, isn't it? A bit of rejigging the admin.
That's exactly right. And so what we just recognise, and everyone now recognises, even the belated people in the Isle of Man government, everyone accepts now that it is the first dose that saves lives. So the obvious consequence of that understanding is you've got to get that dose into people as soon as possible. It is not the vaccine that saves lives; it is the vaccination that saves lives. You got to use it. This thing is like a seatbelt. The seatbelt only protects you if you're using it.
So Derek, you're all geared up in the UK to get vaccinated. Everyone's going to be done by the end of June, apparently. Do you believe that?
Like
Have you got faith in that?
Well, I mean, the numbers are colossal. I mean, you look at some of the footage on the news of the vaccine centres that they're running over here, very much sort of like field hospitals rather than anything too fancy. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of people a day going through these centres. So it is geared up. I've got a couple of friends, one's a nurse and one's a furloughed airline pilot. She's been sticking needles in people and he's been marshalling the car park. And they sort of say, the whole sort of operation is so slick. The numbers that they're able to get through a day are colossal. I think the problem with the Isle of Man is that because it's a victim of its own success, because the infection control has been so good, clearly and quite rightly, they are well down the list for having a rush of vaccines being delivered. If a place had been like, a leper colony, then I think you'd have found that it would have been done a lot quicker. It would have been prioritised, but it's not, and that's the bottom line. So, I mean, somewhere there's a perfect algorithm which will be what Mike's saying, first dose, second dose, and how that sort of all melds together. But when you're looking at what they're competing against in the UK, it's really tricky. I think what's missing is a proper 1 hour sit down podcast with the people that are actually coming up with these algorithms as to why certain people are and aren't being jabbed at a particular time, and have the open conversation, because it would be clear to everybody then. I'm sure there's a perfectly good reason, but what I'm not seeing from any of the stuff that's coming out is that clear and transparent conversation, which is not unusual, is it?
Well, I think Boris has really got a lifeline with the rate of vaccinations, and it's kind of restored some credibility across in the UK above many mistakes and problems that they've had. So they're looking at, say, the end of June. If it all goes to plan, this is going to be like a VE Day celebration, isn't it? It's going to be absolutely massive. Now, the question is, Michael, the UK have it all done and dusted by the end of June. Surely there's no chance that the Isle of Man is going to be lagging behind, and we've got to wait till September to open the gates to welcome all our visitors and so forth. What do you think?
Well, let's certainly hope that it picks up pace. One of the things that is difficult here is that the daily rate of vaccines being deployed in the Isle of Man, it varies quite radically from day to day. And so I'm very reluctant to make any forward-looking projections about this. But you're right that the government should be doing this so that businesses can plan, so that people can plan, and people can have hope, because that's what's really important here. When we've had such a devastating harm of mental illnesses and economic harm and job losses and so on over the last year, it'd be wonderful to have some hope. And so that's why it'd be great for the Isle of Man government to be hopeful and to be optimistic about its future projections, because there are a lot of people doing it tough, and it'd be lovely to see some optimism there for a change.
Has he actually published a Manx roadmap yet?
No.
No,
Right,
of course
okay.
not.
Yeah.
No, I think I think the main characters in this story have gone missing. We've had a bit of an increase in the amount of cases on the island. We've got the question of the steam packet and what actually went on behind the scenes. Were the regulations breached? If so, how was that allowed to happen? And then what happens to those 50 plus people who ended up being incarcerated in the Derby Hilton for perhaps breaches which are much less serious on that spectrum? We've got quite an issue here, Derek, haven't we? I mean, the facts have got to come out.
I think, it would appear that it was state-sanctioned avoidance of the rules. But the thing that really frustrates me with this is, hang on a minute, is the steam packet an arm's-length company or isn't it? Why is government interfering and dictating policy which should actually be nothing to do with them? I mean, I go back to some of the emergency planning stuff I did with the steam packet, and they were fiercely independent in terms of the way they wanted to approach the issue of a catastrophe or incident at sea and so on. And I understand that. But what we've got now is it seems that it's arm's length when it suits and it's arm's length when it doesn't suit. And there needs to be some sort of demarcation here. If the steam packet is operating as a private company and it hasn't come up to the general guidelines, it hasn't followed the law, then there's a case to answer. If they've been told by government, do it this way, then they've got to get out a jail card, haven't they? So it's one of those things where I think people have been meddling where they've got no business to meddle, and it should have been a policy decision by the packet in terms of how they were going to maintain safe operations. It's a health and safety at work issue at the end of the day.
Well, we've not had a press conference for a few days, and we've got a growing cluster. I think it's up to, what is it, plus 30 now, 40? I'm not quite sure. You lose track, really. So, anyway, Michael, you were talking before we came on about the budget and a few issues reflecting that, and we can talk about Tynwald next week. But, Michael, has something caught your eye?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that we spoke about on our then podcast, when you didn't have the pleasure of looking at our faces but only hearing our voices, and one of the things that got some widespread coverage at the time as a result of your podcast was criticism of the then government's sneaky budget communications, in that after they published their budget last year, they released some, I don't know exactly whether it was misleading or deceptive, but certainly some graphs and charts that would cause someone to misunderstand the truth, to put it mildly. And we were pretty critical of them at the time, including in the local press. And so I want to congratulate the Isle of Man government for lifting their game. In this year's spread, their wraparound of the Isle of Man newspaper, they have none of those deceptive graphs. They have none of that trickery of cutting off the y-axis to exaggerate the differences. And so I think it's really good to see the Isle of Man government improving its professionalism, improving its honesty, and just by simply not being deceptive. There's probably other things you can argue back and forth about the budget, about whether the priorities are right, but at least this year we do not appear to have any of those deceptive or misleading infographics. So congratulations to the Isle of Man government for lifting the game on that.
And congratulations to some of our MHKs that are stretching it even further, because the likes of, say, there's, I think, 15 million, is it, going into climate change? Correct me if I'm wrong. And Chris Thomas next week is asking a question. I'll just put it up on the screen, where he's asking for greater detail on how the climate change budget is going to be spent. So that is
on wages, probably.
Absolutely. No, it's quite detailed. I'm just pulling it up on the screen now. I know you guys can't see it, but it really is credit to Chris, where it's drilling down into where this cash is going. Because I know Mr. Boot was questioned last week by Daphne Kane as to just come up with some examples as to, you know, the benefits of this expenditure, where things are going to go, what have we done so far. And he was kind of halted in his tracks to say, oh, we'll give a written answer at a later date. So having some clarity in that will be much valued.
It really would have been better for this to have been decided and figured out before they actually voted to approve the budget. And so on a few occasions now, I've stood out on the 2nd of January on the anniversary of Ilium Domes, hanging out at Hanger Hill down at Castletown, where it is bitterly cold every bloody year. It is absolutely freezing. And Ilium Dome, if he stood for anything, it is surely that he took a stand that the Isle of Man would basically join the parliamentarian side in this English Civil War. And the core reason that Civil War was fought was about the control of the legislature over the spending of money. And so I think that Mr. Thomas's questions here are good and Ms. Kane's questions here are good, but they would have been better before they voted to approve the expenditure.
The thing is, though, this is all easily solvable. The Isle of Man doesn't need its own climate change policy. It's one of those clear cut and paste things. Do what they're doing in the UK. And you see, the good thing about what the UK is doing is it's actually becoming more ambitious. You know, you look at the move from, it was 2040, then 2035, now it's 2030 for the eradication of petrol and diesel cars. You know, this is real ambition, because what you're going to end up with otherwise on the Isle of Man, I think their date is 2040 or something like that, then, you know, you're going to end up with this fog over, you know, this new Manannan's cloak of CO2 emissions, where everything else is running on clean exhaust. It's just, you know, putting all this money into it, it's literally, for me, just a cut and paste thing, because ultimately the difference that it makes, worthy though it is so infinitesimally small in the global scale of things as to not be worth a fig. So it's one of those things, again, where it's a case of let's get real. If you remember at the start of all this, 1 week Howard's going, no, there's no climate emergency. Week after, because somebody's pushed a piece of paper in front of him, we've got a climate emergency. We're going to get on top of this. You know, next minute, Laxey is underwater and so on. It's all over the place. Just follow the big boys on this one. Make it easier. Make it cheaper to do. Make sure that every pound that's spent of that 15 million goes on frontline climate change, rather than an office full of mandarins pushing things around and doing nice graphics and pushing things out on social media. Let's get some action on this.
It's true. I mean, we had the tree planting press release a few weeks ago, and there's been a follow-up to that as to what is the value of 85,000 trees. And I think it's a carbon footprint for, a couple of dozen people. And we've still got issues. You know, we've got a gas turbine power station. We've got this gas agreement that's a mess. We've got 70-odd thousand petrol vehicles. We've got buses that are running around empty. I think just a statement across the Isle of Man to say, look, just reduce your heating bills by 10%, 20%, or this is a grant. This is some assistance so you can make your house more efficient. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Have you seen the programs that they've run in the past? It's literally, you know, you've got to fill in a 20-page document to get half a dozen LED light bulbs, and it's only if you were born with a month with an R in it, and both parents are alive and over 85 years of age, and that you're on income support. It's a nonsense. You know, if there were plenty of things I could have done with my old house on the island, where, yeah, it might have cost 10 grand, but I would have quite happily put air source in. I would quite happily have put solar in. But there was not a fig of incentive from government to do any of this stuff. EV cars, you get a grant in the UK, albeit it's not as generous as it was a few years ago, but they give you money towards a new EV car. It's all positive stuff. But literally, you've got an office full of mandarins filling paperwork in at vast cost, and that's where the money goes, rather than actually looking at slimline, easy to do, frontline stuff. And you know, the UK is not perfect on this as well. They've had a huge climate grant scheme, but even that's been shown to be unworkable. But I think what I've seen from this administration over here is that they do tend to go, yeah, you know what, that was actually a crock of crap. We're going to do it properly next time, and so on. So they do learn from it. But You don't see that sort of learning organisation approach in the Isle of Man government, which is a real shame.
Well, Michael, you keep an eye on the local housing market, and there's been some big developments. There's quite a story emerging, I think, from the housing development just coming out of Ballasalla there. But like me, I mean, do you not see these new houses? They're not really displaying that they're super energy efficient, that they're actually, pushing the green cause. It just seems to be a race to eat up as many green fields as possible and make a load of cash.
I think that's a bit of a funny idea there, in that the Manx NFU, the Manx National Farmers Union, says that the Isle of Man is about 88% green land of various types of pasture, but forest and so on. And so, even if you were to double the amount of housing on the Isle of Man by what do you call it, geographic space, you would increase which is an absurd idea, and no one's suggesting it, and it'll never be done. But even if you were to double the area dedicated to housing, and you took it all from the forested greenland, it means instead of the Isle of Man being 88%, green forested farmland, it'd be 84% green forested farmland. And to be frank, it is not housing that is a meaningful. It's not a very big allocation of land on the Isle of Man. It's a substantially rural island, which is 88% forested land or greenland. And so in that sense, there's no meaningful loss of habitat. And instead, there are a lot of people out there planting trees who are doing good things there. And so when it comes to planting trees, while you and Derek were just chatting there, I did look into what the Chief Minister said about the environmental impact of this People's Wood, as he calls it, this 85,000 trees due to be planted. Now, first of all, he now says it's going to be planted over a few months. Previously, he'd said it was going to be over 5 years. So that's a big upgrade there by the Chief Minister. Congratulations to him. But he estimates, and let me quote from his answer in Tynwald the other day. He says, the carbon sequestration estimate for this site, once these trees have been established as a fully functioning woodland, after 15 to 25 years, is expected to be 87 to 92 tonnes per year, 87.5 to 92.5 tonnes per year. How much is that actually? That's 10 people's carbon usage on the Isle of Man. And I guess that woodland is better than nothing. But this is a deeply uninspiring target to build this woodland that will offset just 10 people's carbon usage. Not even the people in my apartment building will be offset by that, let alone the rest of the people of the Isle of Man. It is not very ambitious, and that's really what we got to do.
So we'd much rather see a serious statement, say, about active travel, solar energy, wave power, all these things that we seem to know about, but the people in charge seem oblivious, Derek. It just doesn't feature.
Yeah, but I mean, sort of sticking on the housing issue at the moment, from tomorrow, no more inefficient houses should be built on the Isle of Man. And what a statement that would be, that everything is super airtight, super insulated, heat recovery system, air source heat pump. Now, if they said to Dandara, Haven, Hertford et al, that's your spec, crack on, the price would be found in terms of, it's not so, it's going to cost £100,000 more. No, it's not going to cost £100,000 more, because a lot of these things you can actually build pre-site anyway and literally just lash them up on site, factory build type stuff. But what a great statement that would be for the Isle of Man, say we don't build now anything unless it's 100% energy efficient. And all the other bits that go on with that are the add-ons. And in terms of a time in space when you're looking to get as much exposure as you can, all the positive exposure that came from the lockdown, the circuit breaker, how well that worked, and so on, all that positive exposure, you need to maximize it. So right, let's have another policy. Let's keep the good news coming in. Let's keep us up here in the news figures, rather than down here where nobody knows about it or sends parcels to the Isle of Wight by mistake because that's where they think the Isle of Man is. It's all these sort of things that really need energising. But I get that impression as I look across, and on a beautiful day like this, I'm sure you've got equally beautiful weather, and I miss the island an awful lot. But it is like a big game of schoolboy football. There is so little to sort out, but so much faff and nonsense around trying to deal with the straightforward issues of the day. Be bold, be brave, and I hope let's see some change in September where we might get an administration which does actually draw a line under the past, purge the past, and start to build a better future for the island.
I think really maybe for some of the profiteers in all this, it's a bit more than a school game, a school sort of playground football match. We're looking at a rental market that is absolutely squeezing those at the bottom of the pile into poverty, really. The costs of everything is going up. They can't buy houses. The houses that should be affordable aren't being built. There's no huge local government, housing projects. It's almost like build as much as you can before they change the rules. Before people wake up to this, because there's no doubt about it, as this election comes closer in September, more people are becoming aware that they can't afford to buy a house.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
There's more to it than that as well, Jed. Because let's say what we're on now, 2021. So by 2035, that's not far away. That's 14 years away, isn't it? No more gas boilers, no more oil heating. So you've got to upgrade to air source. The houses, in the way they're being built, have not got the footprint for an air source heat pump. Much in the way over here that you see, because we have all this recycling stuff going on. I've got 4 wheelie bins. It's not so bad for me. I've got a nice big garden and somewhere to tuck them out of the way. But you see terraced houses and new build estates with 4 wheelie bins outside the front of the garage. It looks estate. And that will come on the Isle of Man once, house doorstep collection recycling upgrades and happens. It's the same thing. These houses are not being future-proofed. So if you're buying a new off-plan estate house now, I'd be asking them, okay, 15 years' time, where do I put my air source heat pump, mate? And they won't give you an answer because there isn't an answer, because they're not being designed with the future in mind. They're being done, stack them high, build them cheap, let's get out of here with a profit and retire to the Seychelles or wherever. That's how it's being operated. People need to wake up to that. Government need to wake up to that.
Who knows? It could be an incentive for future residents to come to the Isle of Man. Come to the island that isn't regulated. Bring your shitty boiler. Bring your gas fire.
Bring your big old smoking.
Have that independence that you deserve. Anyway, right.
That's utopia.
Oh dear, Michael, have you seen anything that's coming up on the Tuesday session? I think it's House of Keys, is it? Or Tynwald, I lose track. Claire Christian, that's one caught my eye, and again, it is a series of questions that are absolutely trying to expose the issues regarding sex crimes and how offences are dealt with. I've just put the question up onto the screen, and if you just take time to have a look at this is looking at a 5-year examination of all kinds of aspects, really, into sexual assaults, how they're investigated, and all the different variants. Is it something that's caught your eye, guys, or is it because there's an election?
Caught my eye.
There's an election coming up this year, and it's something that is a highly emotive subject. I don't know.
It's caught my eye because, as I've defended on many a times, the Public Protection Unit on the Isle of Man was some of the finest men and women I've ever worked with. They were diligent. They left no stone unturned. They were victim focused, and they worked bloody hard. We had some operations, Jed, you'll remember Operation Ore and stuff like that, where we were getting direct information, which was from a major global operation with the likes of the CIA and FBI with credit card information, where it came back to the Isle of Man, warrants were done, people were arrested, properties were searched, indecent images were found. People think think the islands are washed with paedophiles. It's not. It's no more than you would find in any other part of society. What is true is that the Isle of Man police, who I will defend when they do a good job, and I'll berate them when they don't, the Isle of Man police do a bloody good job in terms of investigating this sort of stuff. So I think, I don't know where she's fishing, but I think it's one of those jingoist type things. There's people out there doing a very good job. Could we put more people on it? Yes, we could. Would we find more if we put more people on it? Yes, we would. But you could say the same with financial crime and road traffic policing, anything like that. Give the chief constable the resources, and he'll get the job done.
Michael, are you picking anything up about this? Is there a real angst in the community about this kind of subject?
So I think what Mrs. Christian has asked for there is the data. Good on her, so that way that information can be published and shared and analysed and considered, because the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get the underlying symptoms of the problem, and then you can prescribe diagnoses and solutions. And so good on Mrs. Christian for doing that. I think that's sterling work. This is the sort of scrutiny that members of Tynwald should be doing. They should be trying to, learn more about the issues. They should be trying to obtain the data from the government, so that way it gets on the public record, and people can look at it and review it and think about what we do with it.
I think it's already in the public domain, though, isn't it? Is this not published part of the Chief Constable's annual report in terms of offences and how they're, the detection rate and so on? So this information is there. Listen, I'm not, I'm not saying that.
So just to be clear, then, just for the benefit of our viewers, this is one of the written questions. So what will happen here is that this will be published. I have no reason to expect that it's already in the public domain, but if it is, then it's a bit of a funny question to ask. Don't think it's in the public domain. Like, why would she ask it if it's already public?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time. There's a few in that ask the questions they already know the answer to. So I don't know. I think it's there. I'm just trying to look whilst we're talking there. It's a laudable thing to progress, but I think there needs to be, and it's the part of the constabulary to actually do a little bit more in terms of explaining what they're doing. There's a bit of a PR gap there, and it's one of those departments that does tend to go on quietly, getting on with the job in hand. They are incredibly busy. They're under an awful lot of stress. As you can imagine, it's not an easy domain to work in. I know people who have been permanently damaged by exposure to indecent images when they've been working on that side of things and have had to leave the organisation. So I think what I would be looking for from Mrs. Christian is that there is a big wave of support on the back of this in terms of pressing for more resources and the support that the officers and staff need to get the job done.
I think it would be fair to say that it's highly emotive, and on the Isle of Man population of 85,000, which is kind of focused on a lot of social media, anything with this kind of connotation captures the headline, doesn't it? And it's plastered all over everywhere. So it could be that, who knows, that she's being pressurised by her constituents about such fears, and we'll see what comes out in the wash. It's Derek, you're. Oh, right, the data is there, but I suppose it's all...
Yeah, the data is there.
It's all a case of having a one-stop place to go to examine, this information, because like anything, that if you try and find anything out, you've got to do the detective work yourself. You've got to go into, public records, freedom of information. You've got to go into, the government website and try and navigate yourself around. Because even, week after week, we've got our politicians who are in the House. No one really picks up on what's being said unless it's been reported by the local media, or you go and look yourself. It's difficult, Michael, isn't it, just to keep track of who's saying what?
Well, that's why we pay these 24 members of the House of Keys and a further 9 or 10, or however many it is in the Legislative Council, many tens of thousands of pounds. That's their full-time job. We expect them to do a full-time job, which requires them to then, draw scrutiny and draw attention to issues that they are concerned about. That's the fundamental principle of representative democracy, is we pay these people full-time to do jobs that, the rest of us have, frankly, more important things in life to be doing. And so in that sense, that's why we have them. And if they're is there, they should be our watchdog. They're our representative to serve as watchdog, and that's why I think it's good that Mrs. Christian is doing this stuff, and good on her. And I think it is very notable that we have a few perhaps absent politicians, and absent Anne here in Douglas Central, who is invariably quiet. Might be good on the doorstop, but doesn't. She's been there in office for 5 years now almost, and here Mrs. Christian has been in office for 5 months, and is already doing more. So good on Mrs. Christian, and I hope that the people of the Isle of Man contrast between those members that are doing good jobs come September and those that should be turfed out come September.
Quite right, and I think we should give Chris Thomas a bit of a pat on the back as well, because he was inside the tent. He's now outside the tent, and if you look at what he's questioning too, it is good interest, and he's very active on Twitter as well, so it's a good one to follow. Right, boys, I think we're just coming up to 35 minutes. Any plans for the weekend, Derek? You're still locked in.
Well, I've had plenty to do. I've been re-roofing my garage this week, or I've had a crack team in re-roofing the garage, so the wood preservative guys are in today. They'll be spraying it all, and I can start to get back to some sort of semblance of normality with that. My sports car's camping out at my friend's house. I'm looking forward to getting that back as well. We've got plenty to do, to be honest. We have plenty to be going on with, which is pretty good. And it's my birthday on Monday, so many happy returns to me ahead of that. I'm sure my adoring public will be festooning compliments on Facebook as the day goes on.
Absolutely, Derek, and you'll be one step closer to getting a jab, no doubt. So
yes,
there you go, Michael.
Yeah, Derek, first of all, let me be the first to congratulate you on a happy 27th birthday.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Well done. My Saturday actually somewhat similarly will be involving vaccinations, although I'll be standing out in the rain in the car park helping and with that business down at Castletown. So if anyone is driving past Castletown Airport or Ronald's Way on Saturday morning between 8:30 and midday, feel free to drop by with a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. A little bit of milk and a little bit of sugar is my preference. Otherwise, Sunday morning, I'm volunteering to referee a bunch of sport. Unfortunately, this outbreak of isolations and COVIDs and all this thing has put a bit of a strain on the volunteers. So I'll be out there 9 a.m. till midday Sunday morning, refereeing a whole series of different matches of sport. So that'll be.
I think you're going to be blessed with some good weather, and folks, if you are going to be dishing out some cups of tea down to Michael, don't tantalise him with any biscuits, because the diet, I think Michael has been going 2 weeks. Can you tell me, how is that progressing?
So my goal was 20 kilos by the end of the year, which is 20 kilos over basically 45 weeks or thereabouts. And so far, 2 kilos down in 2 weeks. So I'm a little bit less fat than I was a fortnight ago.
Right. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Good lad.
Keep us posted on
Although
that.
they say that the first couple of kilos are the easiest, right? And so I guess I'm fortunate because I'm 15 feet tall. It does hide some of the kilos a little bit well, but. So far this morning I've had 2 hot cross buns and I'm on target to keep moving forward.
They're known for dropping a few
champions.
pounds. Okay, boys, have a lovely weekend and we'll catch up in due course. Goodbye.
All the best. Cheerio.